Hi, and welcome to today's video on Earned Value Management. The objectives for this video are going to be to learn what is EVM or Earned Value Management, the calculations for EVM, the benefits of EVM, and to show you an EVM example. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's first begin by defining what is Earned Value Management, which is EVM. Earned Value Management is a project management technique that helps project managers to measure project performance. It's a systematic project management process that's used to find variances in projects based on the comparison of work performed and work planned. It's based off the Project Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS. EVM is used on the cost and schedule control and can be very useful in project forecasting. The project baseline is an essential component of EVM and serves as a reference point for all EVM-related activities. EVM provides quantitative data for project decision making. The benefits include the confidence in the ability to manage the project, identify the problems early, and provide objectives rather than subjectives, contract cost analysis, and schedule status. EVM is an area of project management where many processes and knowledge areas link together. You need to understand the basics of scope management, cost management, schedule and time management, and change control procedures in order to help manage scope and to understand EVM well, and you need to be able to interpret the data. To learn more about many of these topics, you can see my other videos on my channel where I provide more information in depth on areas such as scope management and scheduling. But to go over them here briefly, scope management. The building blocks of EVM are found in your approach to scope management, your scope items. You'll get these from your work breakdown structure for the project. So it's essential that you have a detailed and accurate scope because delivering this is how you track progress and ultimately value. Cost management. The next important element is cost management. For each scope item, you need to have a predicted budget. This is the charge or cost of each deliverable. You'll need a detailed budget that breaks down to component level so that you can accurately track project spending against the anticipated levels. Schedule and time management. Next, you'll need a detailed project schedule that includes all of the scope items. Take a baseline of the project schedule and make sure that all the dependencies are included between the tasks, and you'll use this as a timeline against which to track project progress. And change control procedures. Realistically, every project changes something along the way. Your role as the project manager is to make sure that those changes are adequately assessed and incorporated into the schedule and budget. You'll need to change control procedures in place to do that. So they're normally documented within your project management plan. And with a clear process for dealing with change, you can then adapt and update any of your metrics and plan to ensure that you are always tracking against the latest situation. So let's talk about the calculations, which is probably the scariest part for most people, and especially my students that I teach project management to. There are a lot of calculations with EVM, but they're all very, very important, and they all have abbreviations. So as you can see here, PV is planned value. That's the budgeted amount through the current reporting period. AC is actual cost. That's the actual cost to date. EV is earned value, and that's the total project budget multiplied by the percent of the project that's complete. And then there's these other figures that you also have to do calculations on, such as BAC, which is budget at completion. That's the total cost of the project. Your budgeted cost for work schedule is also sometimes included, and basically that's the amount expressed in your pounds or hours of work that are performed as per the schedule plan. And in order to get the budget cost of work scheduled, it's PV equals BAC times the percentage of the planned work. Budgeted cost for work performed or earned value, the amount expressed in the hours of the actual work performed, that's EV equals BAC times percentage of actual work. And then the actual cost of the work performed is the sum of all the costs that actually accrued to the task to date. So let's talk about some of the indexes that you see on here. CPI is a very important one. That stands for Cost Performance Index. It tells you if you are over or under budget. If the value is less than 1, then you're over budget. If it's greater than 1, then you're under budget. And the calculation formula for CPI is EV, which is the earned value, divided by AV, which is the actual cost. Okay. Scheduled Performance Index, which is SPI, is the calculation that involves dividing EV by the PV to measure the progress achieved against where you expected to progress at a certain point. So it tells you if you're ahead or behind your schedule. If you're ahead of schedule, then you would have a greater than 1 number, and if you're behind schedule, it would be -1 or less than 1. So your SPI calculation is EV divided by PV, which is earned value divided by planned value. Your estimate at completion, which is EAC, is comprised of the cumulative to date actual cost of work that's performed plus the estimate to complete the remaining work. So the calculation for that is EAC equals BAC divided by CPI. Your cost variance, which is CV, is calculated, as you see here, is EV minus AC. And that tells you if you're under or how much you're under or over the budget of the project. So if you get a result that's greater than 0, it's favorable. That means you're under the cost. And if you get a result that's less than 0, it's unfavorable. You have an overrun. Your schedule variance, which is SV, is calculated and tells you how much ahead or behind schedule your project is. A result that's greater than 0 is favorable. That means you're ahead of schedule. And a result that's less than 0 is unfavorable. That means you're behind schedule. And the calculation is SV equals EV minus PV. And the variance at completion, which is VAC, it's not always used. You don't see that as often in project management textbooks and readings online, but it is calculated, and it's the result. If the result is greater than 0, that means it's favorable, and the result is less than 0, it's unfavorable. It's the total cost of work and the expected cost. So the calculation is BAC minus EAC. Now, there are definitely benefits to earned value management. It contributes to preventing scope creep, improves communication and visibility to stakeholders, it reduces risk, it has profitability analysis, it's got project forecasting, it shows better accountability and performance tracking. So I highly recommend figuring out how to do the calculations for your specific project in EVM so that you can have all these contribute to your project to make it more successful. So let's go through an EVM example, because I know sometimes throwing out numbers and calculations is a little difficult and it doesn't apply. So let's look at this, for instance. So I'm going to give you an example here. You have a project that has a budget of $10 million and the schedule is 10 months. Now, it is assumed that the total budget will be spent equally each month until the 10th month is reached. So that way you understand that. Okay, it's a little bit easier that way when everything's equal. After 2 months, the project manager finds that only 5% of the work is finished and a total of $1 million spent. So we're going to figure out the PV, the EV, the AV, the CV, the SV, the CPI, the SPI, the EAC, and ETC. You can remember all those, right? All right, so let's go to the next screen and see. All right, so let's go through that example and look at the calculations now. Start off with PV is 2 million and your EV is 10 million times 0.05, which is going to be 0.5 million or 500,000. And your AV is 1 million. So let's start doing calculations. CV equals EV minus AC. When you take the numbers, you get -0.5. And so 100% means that you are 100% overrun. That's not good. Your SV is EV minus PV. So you take your 0.5 and minus 2, and you get 1.5. And you times that by 100, and that means you're 75% behind in your schedule. That's horrible. So when you look at your CPI and your SPI, you get these figures by using the calculations there, the EV divided by AC and the EV divided by PV. And you'll use those in a second. And so your EAC is going to be 20 million and your ETC is 19 million. So what does that tell you, looking at these numbers and what I was just explaining of if you're over or under budget or ahead or behind schedule? Let's look at the solution here. So the time to complete, according to this, is 10, which is the 10 months, minus the 0.5 divided by the 0.25. So you're taking it and you're minusing your CPI and you're dividing it by your SPI. And that means the time to complete this project is 38 months. If you remember, the project originally was set for 10 months. So obviously you're way behind. Obviously you see that from the SV calculation here anyway. Now let's look at the rest here. When you look at the totals, you're taking your the 20 million EAC, estimate at completion is $20 million. All right. And before we go on to the second line here, if you remember, the budget was 10 million. That means you've doubled your budget. You were so far over expenses, it's crazy. And the second part here is that it's going to take you 40 months to complete. And if you remember the example, it was scheduled for 10 months. So you're so far behind schedule. So obviously you're going to have to do something to this schedule because you are way over budget by twice the amount and you're way behind schedule by like 4 times. So I hope that example helped you, giving you actual numbers and the calculations. I know, like I said, this is a very hard concept for people. You might have to read up on each one of these individually. I hope that I gave you a synopsis and a little bit of detail of what each of them are so you can kind of figure it out if you have to do planning for yourself. But this is what earned value management is. It's really important for forecasting. And as you can see here, just going into this a little bit, we already know that this project is going to be over budget by twice the amount and way behind schedule by 4 times the amount. And so obviously some changes need to be made, and that should be something that the project manager brings to the stakeholders' attention so that before proceeding and being, 4 times as late and being twice over the budget, they can try to figure out something of how to make the changes. So I hope you liked this video on earned value management. If you did, go ahead and smash the like button and the little thumbs up there. And if you like this and you want to learn about more project management, I do a lot of videos in my project management channel. You can go ahead and subscribe. I upload them weekly, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.